Hello everybody, I'm Gwen Campbell-Mindes. Welcome to Gwen's Bookish Ramblings, and we are back to Lindsay Davis and the Marcus Didius Falco series, book number 8, A Dying Light in Corduba, in which Didius Falco's girlfriend, she wound up pregnant in the last book, but in this one she's now, seriously pregnant. By which I mean several months pregnant, clearly visibly pregnant, clearly, having the whole, back problems, swollen ankles, difficulty walking around because she suddenly got a massive amount of weight just dangling off of the front there. So this one starts off with Falco. He had made a sort of a friend in the last book, and this friend was one of the chief clerks of the imperial household, imperial staff, and this guy invites him along to the Baetican Oil Producers Association, whatever it's called. Basically, it's kind of a club that gets together and they eat food and they have occasionally a sexy dancer who comes and, does sexy dancing. But it's pretty much just a place to come and eat food, and indeed, while Falco is there, he asks them about it, and they all basically seem to declare, yeah, we don't want any actual Baetican, oil producers here. What are you, nuts? Now, when we're talking about oil, we are, given the region, talking about olive oil. The thing about olive oil in this book is that olive oil is simultaneously a luxury item to an extent, but also something that they feel is incredibly useful. Obviously, oil, it has its uses for cooking, but it's also being used as, a thing to deal with scarring, to deal with stretch marks, something that helps you avoid getting sunburned in various pastes, and it's, can be used in all kinds of ways. And so it's semi-luxury, but at the same time, it's something that has uses for everyone at all times, unlike most luxury items. And so the concern is that out in Baetica, that is Spain, that they're going to be putting together a massive cartel, and that they'll be, holding all of the oil hostage and doing price fixing and, all that kind of stuff that happens when you have some group or region somewhere that has, kind of a hold on the market. And, yes, of course, olive oil is inextricably bound up in Greece, but Spanish olive oil is, has different qualitative qualities in terms of flavor and so on and so forth, and they do produce a lot. And let's be honest, there's a lot more land in Spain than there is in Greece, which means there's obviously a great deal of opportunity for there to be a great deal more trees in Spain than in Greece. Anyways, so they made it, but this sort of comes semi-later. Anyways, so Falco gets invited along on this, and he decides, what the heck, he'll be there, there's good food. And while he's there, he runs across Anacrates, the chief spy, with whom he has a sort of a hate acquaintanceship. The issue with Anacrates is that Anacrates has set Falco up several times, has sent him off to spy, and then written ahead to people saying, by the way, this guy who's coming in, he's a spy. At the same time, there was a moment when, several books back, when Falco tried to apply to move himself up from the plebeian ranks into the equus, moving up from the poor to the middle class, so to speak. And when he was denied, Anacrates was shocked and sort of said, no, you should go past them, you should talk to somebody else. It's sort of, they don't like each other, but they both respect each other in a strange sort of, I understand your position and your skills and your bona fides, and It's a strange sort of back and forth there, because one gets the feeling that they are not friends, but that in the face of another thing they would work together rather than work with someone else. Anyways, so Falco's there and he sees Anacrates there and some guy who winds up dead, and Falco finds out somewhat more about him later. Stuff happens, and then Falco leaves and he finds that other guy who winds up dead and Anacrates have both been beaten. That guy was dead. Anacrates is severely, severely injured. And Falco, in point of fact, drags him home to stay with his mother, because that's the kind of thing that happens in these books, is that Falco says, well, I'm not sure that he'll be safe in some sort of, highly protected public area, but if I take him to my mother, nobody's not going to know to even look for him there, which will at least keep him safe from people attacking him. Anyways, so between one thing and another, Falco figures out that Anacrates was attacked by somebody who had something to do with the Baetic oil consortium thing, and that dovetails neatly with a request from his new clerk friend to head out to Spain and investigate this potential oil cartel. However, Helena is getting closer and closer to giving birth, and a trip out to Spain from Italy in the Roman era is not something that's going to happen, in an airplane flight of a couple hours, and investigations are going to take weeks and weeks, if not months. And so Falco is resistant because he wants to be there when his kid is born. He wants to be there for his girlfriend, for Helena, and he doesn't want to betray her trust by being in a completely different country. So she basically bullies her way into coming with him. So a very pregnant Helena trundles along with Falco on his murder investigation and, oil cartel investigation, and it's a fascinating thing because, of course, this book, in spite of the fact that he is ostensibly, doing government investigation, rolls back around to very much the traditional gumshoe thing. A lot of hoofing it from, well, there is some riding of a horse. It's a bad horse. It's one of those horses that are old and decrepit and can't move above a trot if you really, really make them sorts of horses. But anyways, Falco trundles, he, walks from place to place, rides, and does just all of this legwork, interviewing people, asking questions, looking into stuff, gathering evidence, and so on, in sort of a very slow, methodical way. And, this is not high-octane drama in terms of the investigation. This is gumshoe investigation, a lot of pavement pounding. And he does this. Helena, of course, helps him because as a woman there are things she can ask that he can't ask, places she can go that he can't go, and effects that a pregnant woman of extremely high social standing asking that will get different results from a, tired, slightly sarcastic, bitter gumshoe asking. So they work very well together because in a lot of ways she does wind up complimenting him by being able to do stuff and ask things that he can't. Anyway, so they go around, and one of the things that he finds out during the course of this is that there's not necessarily a cartel, that somebody had been proposing it, but that it wasn't necessarily happening. It's a whole big back and forth, but by the end of it, what he figures out is that the man who sent him here initially is very possibly trying to make a cartel on behalf of the government as a matter of handing over this price-fixed, under government control oil trade over to Vespasian, who it's not that Vespasian is greedy per se, it's that he is from a lower economic background and understands the value of a dime, so to speak, and will look to the notion of a government controlled thing that can make his government a large amount of money and think that that's a great idea. And if it all falls apart, then then our clerk friend, whose name begins with an L and I can't remember offhand what it is and will not look it up because I don't take notes or do research, he's basically planning to sort of have this where if it falls apart, then he'll hand it over to Vespasian and say, here, I found an oil cartel, aren't I just special? The whole thing is just a weird, complicated plot. And then, eventually, Falco does find out the guy who did it, and he's one of the handsome young men in the area who's sort of a rising star of various things. But the interesting thing is that this is a guy who, in the end, comes across as one cannot be wholly certain if he is somebody who is, diagnosably sociopathic, like diagnosably somebody who just doesn't have empathy for other people. He's just very, very good at aping it. Or if he is a young man who was from such a rich and wealthy background that because he has never had to face consequences, he doesn't understand them. Because that can happen sometimes with very, very wealthy people, is that they don't understand the concept of consequences in a more personal manner because everything that they've ever done, every mistake they've ever made, has been able to be swept away by judicious application of money. And so they don't really get it. In this young man's case, he's very, very personable, very handsome, and quite clever in terms of presenting himself, in terms of figuring out the right thing to say. And it's that facility, that ability to sort of, say the right thing, do the right thing, look clever, and, get along well with people. It doesn't stand him in good stead in terms of actual practical skills, but he's one of those people who's very good at looking competent until he proves himself incompetent, and between that and being very, very wealthy, it's entirely possible that his lack of care for, his accent for the friend of his that he wound up killing, and his whole participation in this may simply be the blankness of somebody who has never had to understand these things. But it could equally be somebody who just lacks human empathy. It's a little bit hard to tell, but in the end, this young man manages to kill himself by basically doing something that it's one of those things where, how people who do heavily physical jobs, you get very, very skilled at it, and there are things that you do easily that are slightly more risky, but because you've done it 3 bazillion times, you take a step left, grab the thing, swing down here, go this way, and it's not an issue, but somebody who's never done it before will fall flat on their face and break something. And in this case, he decides to do like the locals do and steps onto a ladder in the wrong direction, facing the wrong way, without paying attention to what he was doing, and winds up basically falling to his death. And that ending is, I think, designed to be poetic. It's designed to be poetic about somebody who has never had to deal with consequences getting felled by the consequences of something that he can't, deal with in terms of, having, that he can't deal with it or pay it to go away. Anyways, so I think that's everything. Oh yes, Falco's kid is born by the end of the book, so we'll pick up on that story in the next one. And I will see you all next week.